July 19, 1943, the Mediterranean Sea, 30 miles off the coast of Sicily. The world is a chaos of noise and water. Inside the fuselage of the Italian CANT Z.506 floatplane, the roar of the 3 Alfa Romeo engines has been replaced by the deafening shriek of tearing metal and the explosive crash of water. The aircraft, a reconnaissance bomber nicknamed the Aeron, or Heron, hits the surface of the sea at over 100 miles per hour. The impact is catastrophic. For the 5-man Italian crew, time stops. They are thrown violently against their restraints. The cockpit glass shatters, and the cold, dark Mediterranean floods in. The plane is a wreck. It lurches, groans, and begins its rapid final descent to the bottom. They had left their base at Sardinia just hours before, on a routine patrol to spot Allied shipping related to the ongoing invasion of Sicily. They were the hunters. But the weather, the infamous Mediterranean Sirocco wind, had turned against them. It rose from a breeze to a gale in less than an hour. First, the starboard engine sputtered, choked on fuel, and died. Then the center engine, stressed beyond its limits, caught fire. The pilot, Capitano Franco Rossi, fought the controls, his knuckles white, trying to keep the heavy plane level as it fell from the sky. He yelled at his crew to brace for ditching. There was no time for procedure, no time for a gentle landing. He aimed for the trough between 2 massive waves and hoped. Now, in the sinking wreckage, there is only panic. Rossi, dazed and bleeding from a cut on his forehead, unbuckles his harness. The cockpit is already chest-deep in water. He screams for his crew. "Fuori! Fuori! Get out! Get out now!" The co-pilot is slumped over, unconscious. Rossi shakes him violently. The man groans, stirring. In the rear compartment, the radio operator and the gunner are fighting the twisted metal of their escape hatch. It is jammed. Finally, with a desperate kick, the hatch breaks open. They scramble out onto the wing, dragging the wounded co-pilot with them. The 5th man, the flight engineer, is gone, trapped in the rapidly flooding fuselage. 4 survivors huddle on the high wing of the sinking floatplane. The storm is raging around them. The wind howls and the sea spray stings their faces like needles. Every few seconds, a massive wave crashes over them, threatening to tear them from their only refuge. They are soaked, freezing, and in enemy territory. The invasion of Sicily means these waters are swarming with American and British ships. To be spotted by a patrol boat would mean capture. But as the minutes turn into an hour and the plane sinks lower, they realize capture is their best-case scenario. The alternative is drowning in the cold, violent sea. They are Italian airmen. They are the enemy. No one is coming to save them. Their situation is hopeless. They huddle together for warmth against the wind, watching the gray, angry waves, and wait for the end. They do not know that someone else is in the storm with them. High above the clouds, a lone American hunter is also fighting the weather, and he is about to face an impossible choice. High above, at 8,000 feet, Lieutenant Richard Dick Kight is fighting. His aircraft, a PBY Catalina, is a giant, lumbering flying boat. It is tough, reliable, and designed to land on water, but not this water. The same Sirocco storm that doomed the Italian plane is now trying to tear Kight's Catalina apart. Kight, of the U.S. Navy's Patrol Squadron 61, is on a routine anti-submarine patrol. His mission is to find and destroy German and Italian U-boats that are preying on Allied shipping. He is a hunter. The men drowning far below are, by every definition, his enemy. The Catalina shudders violently, dropping 200 feet in a sudden downdraft. Kight and his co-pilot, Ensign Paul C. Swede Nelson, fight the yokes, their muscles straining. The rest of the 8-man crew are tossed about in the fuselage, clinging to their stations. The radio operator is trying to get a clear signal back to base in Sicily. The waist gunners peer out of their big blisters, scanning the gray, mountainous waves for the thin white line of a periscope's wake. "Anything?" Kite's voice is tight over the intercom. "Nothing but waves, skipper," the starboard gunner replies. "This sea is too rough. You couldn't spot a battleship down there, let alone a periscope." Kight nods grimly. The patrol is likely a bust. The weather is getting worse. His orders are clear. In conditions like this, avoid unnecessary risks and return to base. He is about to give the order to turn back when Ensign Nelson, in the seat beside him, points. "What is that?" "Starboard, 3 o'clock low." Kight banks the heavy Catalina, squinting through the rain-lashed windscreen. Down on the chaotic surface, he spots it. A flash of yellow, stark against the gray-black water. A life raft? No. It is the wing of a sinking aircraft, and there are figures clinging to it. Kite's mind races. He is a combat pilot. His instinct is to identify friend or foe. He brings the Catalina down low, just a few hundred feet above the waves, fighting the controls as the wind tries to slam them into the sea. He circles the wreckage. It is an Italian plane, a CANT Z.506. He can clearly see the fascist insignia on the fuselage. He sees the men, 4 of them, waving frantically. They are the enemy. The rules of engagement are clear. He should mark their position, radio it in, and continue his patrol. Or, given the storm, simply fly on. His mission is to hunt submarines, not to rescue enemy airmen. And then there is the sea itself. The waves are easily 15, maybe 20 feet high. The U.S. Navy flight manual is explicit on this point. An open sea landing in a PBY Catalina in Sea State 5 or higher is strictly forbidden. It is not difficult. It is considered suicidal. The massive, flat-bottomed hull of the Catalina is not designed to handle waves of that size. The most likely outcome is that a wing float will catch a wave, cartwheeling the entire aircraft, or the hull will split open on impact, killing them all. His crew knows this. The tension in the cockpit is thick. "Skipper, that's an I-tie plane," his radio man says over the intercom, his voice nervous. "And look at that sea. We can't land in that. We'll be torn to pieces." Kight circles again, lower this time. He sees the faces of the men on the wing. They are no longer waving. They are just staring up, their hope visibly dying. They know who he is. They know he is the enemy. And they know he is their only chance. The Italian plane lurches, and one of the men is washed off the wing, saved only by the grip of his comrades. They will not last another 10 minutes. Kight is a hunter, but he is also a pilot, an airman. He knows the regulations. He knows the risk to his own crew. He knows the men below him are the enemy he was sent here to kill. He makes his decision. He clicks his intercom switch. His voice is calm, firm, and final. "Swede, take the controls. I'm going aft to open the blisters. Get the lines ready. We're going in." The co-pilot's eyes go wide. "We're what? Skipper, you can't be serious. Regulations." "To hell with regulations." Kight cuts him off. "We're landing. Prepare the crew for open sea ditching procedures. But we are landing." Kight and his crew are not trained for this. No one is. He takes the controls back, his jaw set. He circles one last time, judging the wind, the massive swell. He has to land parallel to the waves, a maneuver made almost impossible by the crosswind. He cuts the power to the 2 Pratt & Whitney engines, and the giant flying boat begins its harrowing descent into the storm-tossed sea. The PBY Catalina is a sturdy aircraft, but it was never meant for this. As it descends, the 20-foot waves rise up like mountains. Kight aims for the back of a wave, trying to touch down in the relatively calmer trough. He cuts the last of the power. The stall warning horn blares. For a second, they are flying, then they are not. The hull hits the water with the force of a multi-ton sledgehammer. The impact is bone-jarring. Every man in the crew is thrown against his harness. The entire aircraft groans as if it is being torn in two. A massive wall of green water smashes against the cockpit, blinding the pilots. Kight fights the yokes, using the last of his airspeed to keep the wings level. The Catalina bounces, slamming down hard a second time, then a third. Each impact is a new explosion, a new test of the aircraft's will to survive. Inside, the noise is unimaginable. The sound of rending metal, popping rivets, and the roar of the sea. In the rear, the radio man is thrown from his chair. The waist gunners cling to their .50 caliber mounts as the ocean pours in through the open blisters. The port side wing float, designed to keep the wing from dipping, catches a wave. It is ripped clean off the wing. The entire aircraft slews violently to port, the wing dipping dangerously low, threatening to cartwheel the plane and send them all to the bottom. "Hold it! Hold it!" Kight roars, fighting the rudder pedals, applying full power to the starboard engine to straighten the plane out. The engine screams in protest, but it works. The Catalina, its port wingtip now slicing through the tops of the waves, slowly stabilizes. It is no longer flying. It is a boat. A very, very broken boat. The crew is stunned, bruised, but miraculously alive. They are floating, but the plane is crippled. The port wing is damaged, and water is pouring in through seams in the hull that were split open by the force of the landing. "Get the pumps working," Kight orders. "Nelson, keep us pointed into the wind." They have survived the landing. Now they must survive the sea. About 200 yards away, the 4 Italian airmen on the wing of their own sinking plane watch in stunned disbelief. They just saw an American plane, an enemy, commit an act of suicidal insanity to reach them. Kight, his engines still running, skillfully maneuvers the crippled Catalina closer to the Italian wreckage. It is a nightmare task. The waves constantly push the 2 aircraft either apart or threateningly close to colliding. "Get the lines," K message. The American crewmen, waist deep in cold seawater inside their own fuselage, throw rescue lines towards the Italians. The wind rips the lines away. They try again and again. Finally, one of the Italian airmen, a young gunner, makes a desperate leap into the sea and swims the few yards, grabbing the line. One by one, the American crew hauls the 4 exhausted, hypothermic, and utterly bewildered Italian airmen through the side blister. The last man to be pulled aboard is the Italian pilot, Capitano Rossi. He is bleeding, shivering, but his eyes are clear. He stands in the flooded fuselage of the American plane, facing the American pilot, Lieutenant Kight. They are enemies. Their nations are locked in a brutal war. Rossi, in broken English, manages a single word: "Perché?" "Why?" Kight just looks at him, exhausted, and gestures to the storm outside. "We are airmen." There is no time for more. The Italian CANT Z.506, its wing now clear of men, finally gives up its fight. It lurches, rolls over, and sinks beneath the waves. The rescue is complete. 4 enemies are now safe aboard the Catalina. The American crew feels a surge of triumph. They have done the impossible, but their ordeal is just beginning. The radio man yells over the storm, his face pale. "Skipper, the pumps aren't keeping up. The water is gaining." Kight assesses the situation. The port wing is damaged, the hull is compromised, and the waves are still pounding them. He knows, with a sinking feeling, that this rescue has come at a terrible price. They have landed in the storm, but they will never be able to take off again. The mood inside the Catalina changes instantly. The triumph of the rescue vanishes, replaced by the cold, grim reality of their new situation. They are no longer a hunter. They are not even rescuers. They are now victims, just like the men they saved. There are now 12 men, 4 of them enemy Italians, trapped together inside a crippled, flooded, and sinking American aircraft. And they are in the middle of a raging storm, in the open Mediterranean. "Keep pumping," Kight orders, his voice now grim. "Radio man, transmit a mayday. Send our position, now." The radio man frantically cranks the handle of the emergency Gibson Girl radio, but the signal is weak. The storm interference is too strong. "Skipper, I don't know if anyone is hearing this." The situation is dire. The PBY Catalina is a flying boat, not a warship. It is not designed for heavy seas. The hull, already split by the landing, is taking on water faster than the small hand-operated bilge pumps can clear it. The port wing, with its float ripped off, is digging deeper into the water, pulling the entire aircraft over. The plane is slowly, agonizingly, capsizing. "All hands to the starboard wing," Kight yells. "We have to balance the weight." The American crewmen and the Italians, understanding the universal language of survival, obey instantly. They crawl out of the blisters and onto the high starboard wing, huddling against the fuselage to shield themselves from the wind and spray. It is a desperate, temporary fix. 12 men sitting on one wing to counteract the weight of an entire engine and the water flooding the other side. For hours they endure. The storm rages. Waves wash over them, threatening to peel them from their precarious perch. They take turns, some men going back inside the flooded fuselage to work the hand pumps, a hopeless, exhausting task. The Americans share their emergency rations with the Italians. The Italians, grateful and stunned, try to help, bailing water with their own flight helmets. In the crucible of the storm, their uniforms, American and Italian, cease to matter. They are just airmen, united against a common enemy, the sea. Capitano Rossi, the Italian pilot, huddles next to Lieutenant Kight. "The plane," Rossi shouts over the wind. "She is bad." Kight nods, his face grim. "She is. We cannot take off. Our hull is breached. We wait for rescue." "Rescue?" Rossi looks at him. "Who will rescue us? Your people or mine?" Kight stares at the dark horizon. "At this point, Captain, whoever finds us first." The day drags on. The storm miraculously begins to subside. The wind dies down, and the massive waves are replaced by a heavy, rolling swell. But the calm brings a new, colder reality. They are alone, utterly alone in a vast ocean, and their aircraft is sinking. The port wing is almost completely submerged now. The water inside the fuselage is rising steadily. The pumps have failed. The Catalina, the machine Kight had risked to perform an impossible rescue, is now becoming their coffin. As darkness begins to fall, the situation is critical. The plane will not last the night. Kight makes another hard decision. Inflate the life rafts, everyone off the wing. The crew retrieves the 2 5-man rubber life rafts from their compartments. They inflate them and tether them to the sinking plane. 12 men, 10 spots. They crowd onto the rafts, sitting in cold seawater. The wounded Italian co-pilot slumped between 2 American gunners. Kight and Rossi are the last to leave the wing, jumping into the raft just as the Catalina gives a final, shuddering groan. With a sigh of escaping air, the giant PBY, their rescuer and their prison, sinks beneath the waves and disappears. They are now 12 men in 2 small rubber boats, floating in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. The storm is gone, but the night is cold. They have no food left, no dry clothes, and only a small amount of fresh water. They are enemies, adrift together, their fate now tied to the currents. As the hours of darkness tick by, they can only watch the stars and wait. They do not know if their Mayday signal was ever heard. They do not know if anyone is even looking for them.